Karen, can you hear me okay?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I couldn't find the video though, but I do now. All right.
Good.
So, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I am so sorry I was late. It's not a good look. It was just, I try to be on time for things. But enough about that. What I wanted to talk about today was plus size riders and also about that 20% rule and your
Okay.
thoughts on that.
My thoughts on that are people who can't do math very well and very regularly. I, as a judge, get to see all kinds of partnerships, and most commonly, I see a ton of tall or large kids on small ponies and small adults on large ponies, where the 20% rule doesn't seem to apply because the pony's cute. I go to quarter shows all the time where there's no question the 20% rule doesn't apply because it's a man. And I feel like a lot of times the 20% rule is just an easy way to kind of attack visual issues with riders, right? I mean, as if we don't already know that we're plus sized. We don't need that pointed out, as if we're not already aware. So the best thing, in my opinion, to do is make sure our tack fits us and our horse well, and to check for signs of tension all the time. But I do really feel like it's just an easy out and an easy way to kind of scream that there's abuse going on because of someone's weight, when there's abuse going on like every other rider in some capacity, either with a poor fitting bit or a poor fitting saddle. And I just think it's rubbish. I've done enough interviews with enough saddle fitters where they've also debunked it. I've taken enough lessons with enough Olympians that they have no problem with my weight or how I manage my weight. It's about balance in the saddle and whether or not our tack fits us and our horse, so that we can better aid them to lifting their back if that's what we're doing, as far as exercises go.
Excellent. I've heard a little bits and pieces of this on your social media, so it's nice to put it all together.
Well, to be fair, I mean, it's not like we're riding small ponies, right? Or underweight
No.
horses.
And back
And
in the
that's,
day when they have been a lot smaller horses that we were dealing with and things like that.
I'm fortunate enough to work with a purebred Spanish Mustang, which is as the original conquistadors brought over from Spain as the horses here. And they're used to full grown men back in the day who were definitely in shape, eating their protein with armor on. And this guy's petite and hardy. The Arabians are petite and hardy. There's a lot of petite and hardy horses. However, I think it's just really easy for a lot of people to just blame a look, whether or not we see any kind of sensitivity or disruption to fluidity. And that's just a shame. But I do appreciate, however, that there's a lot more saddle fitters and outfit designers that are accommodating the normal bodies that are now comfortably riding in equestrians.
And that's a perfect place to slip in here. What are a couple brands that you work with that are going to fit us plus size ladies?
I know the bigger brands like Smart Pack has done a really great job.
Yeah,
I
I've
think they
heard
used to
those.
have they used to have the Fuller Fillies. They did fantastic. The Hunter people are getting more into plus size. I started with Bell Eck. They go to an extra large. However, I'm a size 18, and on all of their shirts fit me. PH Clothing Co. is one of my first people who continuously checks in with me. How does this fit you? How does this fit your plus size clients, pants wise, shirts wise? I adore her, and she's always wanting to accommodate. Never wants to leave anyone out. I know the Blossom Creek lady with the winter beautiful clothing that I just met recently during the giveaway. Also, same way. How can we accommodate both smaller, petite, and larger, both in height and in weight and roundness. And then Tiandro Equestrian, she is very adamantly trying to make sure no one feels left out. I actually feel bad for the men now because I feel like we really have some great brands here that are, Castell, like I'm wearing an XXL in Castell. They've really upped their game and it's too big on me. So I think a lot of brands are really working on getting much more accommodating within the size range for sure.
Yes, I think nowadays there's actually some breeches on the market that I could order. I just like things a little bigger because I have some kind of deformity and pain there. And so like
Right.
tight britches are just not
Right.
what I like, but I like britches. So very cool. And then where is my little thing of questions? So, any tips for improving your riding or finding a more balanced seat if you're a bigger or smaller rider? Because that's really, I think, what's important here versus a weight, but riding that weight differently to help your horse.
I think balance is a relative thing that most riders are not taught to accommodate. And what I mean by this, I was, I'm a child of the 80s, right? So we were taught to be in forward position in 2.4 hours on end, right? And we have that muscle memory. However, most instructors in the time that we're allowed feel kind of pressure to go ahead and push on towards meeting your riding goals, and we tend to just evaluate what we can at the time because we don't want to be met with combativeness and or lose a client, right? The problem that a lot of people have is as we sit more, as we age, our hips and or shoulders and or backs tend to adjust. And when we're sitting in the saddle, a lot of times we're seeing the profile of a rider. As an instructor, as we take photos, we're seeing the profile and we try to adjust the profile instead of the cause, right? A lot
Mhm.
of people want to have even stirrups, though their hips might not allow for that. I had some riders with me this past weekend when I was judging, and they were like, "Hey, the stirrups are uneven," because they were trying to find things that they could learn to visually. Yes, but the hips are even, and this rider's shoulders are even. So let's allow for their hips to be a little uneven. If a longer stirrup allows for them to swing their leg much more freely versus having to adjust their whole body, then let's allow for that. I think a lot of people aren't taught to be dynamic in the saddle and really move around. And I could be using the wrong word; it might be static. But the word meaning, can I teach my muscles to move versus strain and push into a shoulder back? Can I
Mhm.
teach my body to allow and move with the movement of this horse and adjust with the movement of this horse? Can I start to really own myself and know where I need to maybe shift to help better balance an unbalanced horse? That's also a huge impact on this statement, because I can teach you to be completely balanced on a non-moving animal, and then the
Mhm.
animal comes in and is completely unbalanced, and it's extremely frustrating at that point. Are you still with me? I hope you're still with me. I'm just going to keep chatting. Your face went away. Um, I'm good at just rambling on. When we have an unbalanced horse, and I mentioned this, I think in a video recently, where at camps I have riders play tug of war. And the goal being, of course, to get the flag across the line. And the rider never thinks about what they look like. They think about the goal and how can I adjust better to reach the goal. And as trainers, a lot of us are much more willing to adjust our position to help the horse better understand what we're asking of them and better adjust their own balance and become more fluid and or strong. And then, if we're getting ready to show, we'll adjust to have a little bit better equitation. But I tend to think that most non-professionals, amateurs, that it's generally called, tend to ride towards a look, not necessarily the functionality for them and or their horse. And that's kind of where I wish our community would better help. If I've got a really top heavy rider, I'm not going to teach them to kind of strain back. That is a strain that's going to cause a huge strain on their backs. It's going to cause pain. I'm going to teach them to maybe do things one sided, maybe elongate their body, maybe allow themselves to shift around a little bit so that their parts are a little bit more balanced and better to help and aid into the transitions or whatever movement you may be asking for.
Wow. Just all the technical difficulties, I guess, today.
No worries. No worries. We're good.
Okay. Where
I
were
did.
we?
Yeah. Okay. So we were chatting about balance, and she told me to keep going. So I kept going a little bit, and I've kind of rounded that up. Okay. Perfect. There's a lot of rambling
Beautiful.
and ums. You
Thank
can play
goodness
a
she's
drinking game
here.
with
That's
my
why we
ums.
do this as a team. So this is something I've just started. I'm going to try asking kind of the same question in all of our episodes. So, what advice would you want to give, like your top advice to a younger person? I know your daughter's going into the industry, um, possibly. And just what would you want to tell them about going into your industry?
What advice would I give a young person going into the industry?
These days.
Observe and take what best suits you, your core, your heart. Be willing to adjust, be willing to advocate for yourself and your horse. Be willing to learn from as many as you can. Be willing to ask questions. I think a lot of times we kind of go with the flow and are pushed to go with the flow. I did talk to somebody about this yesterday, that most working students are youthful because they're much easier to manipulate and kind of adjust and keep quiet. And I think asking why we're doing things and stick to your core. Like, is this something that you're comfortable with? If not, be able to move along. Take what you can, and that might even be I will never do that.
Yeah.
And then try to stay off social media. I'm
Yeah.
fortunate that I did not grow up or go through my first divorce on social media, or my life would probably look different now. But yeah, find a core group, find some sort of like release, but stay off social media with the negativity. Try to find grace and professionalism if you can.
Yes, I think I was just writing about exactly what you said, of thinking about my internships back in the day, and I didn't know who I was quite,
Mm,
or what I wanted, what my morals were in the first place. I
people
didn't know
bank on
what we
that.
were doing, and then so
Hmm.
hard to hold your ground. And I also really didn't know. I didn't even have any questions to ask. I was just very
Mm.
starstruck,
I think it's
as it
really
were.
important. I do say this fairly regularly. I have no issue admitting I have been an abusive person, either due to my environment, due to the pressure of my environment or the coach in front of me, or because that's what I knew. That is why I am where I am now. I'm now able to see differences and adjust. So I was telling someone, like same person yesterday, when I was in Europe, we polled horses. We popped them as they went over fences. And she was like, "Why would you do that?" And I was like, "Well, I was 18 and everyone I lived with did it. And I just assumed I didn't know that this is how we did things." And I think to really see the deep, dark side of our industry, there's a lot there, which is why I'm not on that aspect of the industry that I'm not comfortable with and I will not do. However, I am happy to own that I have done horrible things and will never do them again. But that also helps me to understand that some of these horses that have come from situations, I know what they might have been through, and now we can better adjust and guide them to a more positive training scenario.
Awesome. Yeah, I think biggest one, like, question everything. Doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
if you're new, and even for
Yes.
people taking lessons, is to, if it doesn't seem right, ask why, and if they can't tell you why, like,
Yes. Why are we doing
we've
this?
come
Why
a
are we
long
adding
way.
this? Why are you adjusting this? Yes, because remember, as instructors, our job is to teach you to be able to ride without us. As trainers, my job is to be able to explain to you why I'm doing this now and may not be doing it later. This is the point in training, right? And that's our job. We have to be able to explain it. There might be moments where I'm like, "Hey, I'll get back to you in a minute. We need to address this right now." But we should be able to be knowledgeable and confident enough to answer that question, and humble enough to say, "I don't know the answer to that. I will research it and get back to you."
Yeah, and that, yeah, at least that, and we love
Right.
that. We love teachers who are also already learners
Let's
and keep
learn. Let's
learning, right?
learn.
And then
Yeah,
we
let's
can all
learn.
keep learning, and it's great. And on that note, the other question I'm going to start asking everybody is, what are one or two things um, equestrians can do to put their horse first? A little nod to Isabeau's past podcast called Putting the Horse First. But just in your opinion, one thing that people can do to put their horses first.
Realize that each horse is an individual and that horse is your partner and you are their partner, which means you're their advocate, you're their coffee buddy, you're their vent system, you're their caretaker, you're their everything for the hour, 2 hour, 3 hours that you're with them. Document how they are, how do they adjust to things differently, and start to think, instead of, maybe a lot of people want to take the horse into that corner and she just keeps showing them the corner and they're not observing how the horse might be reacting to the corner. Does my horse need to feel like they have a partner or someone that's pushing them, right? Can I feel like I have a partnership here, which means now as a partnership we're going into the scary corner? Or is this a horse that needs to see it, address it, and then be like, "Okay, I'm good"? So I think knowing your horse, knowing your horse's response, being able to really kind of think about what your horse needs in a situation, and then be comfortable telling your instructor, "Hey, I'm going to stay out of that corner right now. it's not worth it. He'll get really hyped up, and I'd really like to keep him below threshold. So I think really knowing your partner well, as if, you could go buy them a Christmas gift or birthday gift without even thinking, right? You could order their coffee before they get there. That kind of relationship is the goal, in my opinion, to have a really good partnership connection and be a good advocate for your horse. So if you know your horse well enough, you should be able to know when they're not feeling right, when they're not mentally right, when it's just not the time, and or when they can be pushed a bit.
Well, thank you so much, Karen. I'm going to start wrapping it up. I know that you have places to be and go, but thank you for joining me. I've been looking forward to this for a long time, so I don't know why all the technical difficulty. I
We
would love.
always have hurdles, don't we? As equestrians, we always get to have a hurdle first. Yeah, no worries.
Yes. Well, thanks so much for being a good sport. And at the same time, I would love to have you now just talk about your online program and what you have to offer that people who might listen might come and come to you for. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I do have social media. I do have a YouTube channel, TikTok, Instagram, which throws everything over to Facebook, which I'm very rarely on, as far as my business page. I do clinics and I judge and I apprentice a lot because, again, I'm here to learn in every industry that I possibly can within the equestrian world. And that said, I keep a private subscription page. Thank you so much for mentioning that. We do meet on Facebook. It's just easier. And I do a live once a week, sometimes with the horses. Sometimes I bring in videos or magazines or we just discuss. And that we meet on Mondays. And I also share lessons that I'm teaching throughout the week that I will not post on social media. I am not here to let anyone be subject to what I'm willing to put myself out there for, because I want people to realize they're not alone. They're not alone in how their hips work. They're not alone in how their reaction is. They're not alone in, hey, it's too cold for me to ride, or I'm riding in the rain. There's so many different aspects and none of them are wrong. It's just where we are on our journey. So I do have that group. You can sign up on my website for it, or you can message me about it. And I thank you so much for even being supportive and mentioning it. I really appreciate that.
No, I'm looking forward to that. And, I'm friends with Gabby. We met
Oh,
through
okay.
podcasting and we've gotten quite close. And so
Okay.
she has mentioned me several. She's like, I wouldn't have known, and I even have been on your website, but she's like, you get that 20-minute mindset call with Karen if you do that.
Mhm.
And I think that's so cool. So
I do hope to start my own podcast this year. I have wanted to for a long time,
yes,
and my own anxiety holds me back. My own feeling not worthy enough holds me back, and technical difficulties, right, holds me back.
it's a
But I
lot.
think this year is the year, right? It's
Yes. Well,
super
let us know
scary.
if we can support you in any way in that
I appreciate
aspect.
it. Yes, thank
And
you so
then
much. Okay.
I've been wanting to do virtual, and but I don't really ride um, because of my health. Like winter's got me inside anyway.
Okay.
However, I have quite an interest in learning how to judge, but I don't know how we would do that online. Kind of want to learn the ins and outs, especially of maybe some little dressage tests. So I was wondering if that's something we could do over virtual.
It is something we can do over virtual. I have thought about doing like a month thing where we meet on a certain day at a certain time within a group, potentially on a
Mm,
Zoom, where we
yes.
discuss. I think enough people don't realize how to break down what we are as judges are allowed to judge you on, allowed to
Mhm.
comment on. We cannot coach you. We have to be kind and guiding without coaching. And I think enough people do not realize where the criteria of all the movement is. It's written on the page, right? Why some horses do better than other horses. And generally it comes to tempo and fluidity in between. And then I don't think enough instructors right before a show sit where the judge is going to be sitting to see where our flaws are. Most of us are on the side or in the middle of the arena,
Yes.
and that changes the angle drastically. And so it really, and again, I do videos where I seem so catty and I feel so bad about it, of what you wear makes a huge impact on what we visually see. Because if you're coming down the center line and your spurs are and your stirrups are all sparkly, you look frantically moving those legs in the saddle. If you've got pinstripes and you are a little unbalanced, I'm now glancing at you, and now I'm freely able to say, you're now my problem versus the horse being the issue, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we do talk about those a lot. We do talk about it in the subscription page. Last night we actually discussed profile photos and how lighting, angle, even placement makes a huge impact on how the confirmation looks. And so we do discuss that a lot, but I'm more than happy to discuss that.
That is very encouraging to hear. And on recording, just Karen has virtual lessons. I know several people who just take lessons that way. It is quite effective for someone like her who can really see what's going on a video to really give some good instruction.
Well, I will mention, so what I do is, and I encourage a lot more people to do FaceTime versus Pivo. Pivo quits tracking, and then I have to like
Yeah.
go in and override it, and I keep kind of losing, but I can hear your tempo, so I can kind of keep talking through that. But it becomes a bit of a mess sometimes. FaceTime, it's just a screen, like, you're right, and I'm able to then take my phone and video whatever I've got. And let's say you're on the computer, and I can even have the laptop going if I need, the tablet going. And then you can hear my voice coaching you, and then I send it back to you in Facebook Messenger. And that makes a huge difference, because I don't think a lot of times we get to see ourselves in the saddle. We get to see that moment. Most of the time people want the scary moments or the fiasco moments, and that's fine, and that's for them. But I will always say, hey, do you mind if I post this on the group? This is something I see so common, and I want people to realize you're not alone in this. And so everything that you'll see when you join the group is people have said, yes, share away. Absolutely.
Well, awesome. Well, I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you have a lesson after this, but thank you so much, Karen.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And I do hope to have you on again for a couple other subjects. I'd love to talk to you sometime about online business and how that's going, because you do have quite a bit of followers, and we're just very curious, honestly.
I make no money. I
And
genuinely,
that too. I think people need to hear that. Like,
I make no money. I have done everything in my power to figure out how to make more money. What I do is I try to stay positive and think it's going to come back to me in other ways.
yeah.
And it has been a long time coming. I don't get frustrated online. I do get frustrated with like driving to lessons when I think people are rude to me, because that is like me spending time and money and effort. But I don't make money. And most of the equestrian world isn't going to pay. They'll send you clothes, but they don't pay us. They don't have the ability to. The equestrian world's pretty tight. So the
Yeah.
money is not there as
No.
far as this
I
being something.
think I think we could all use the reality check, but I also think that the online aspect of business is just a reality now for everybody.
Yes.
And there's
Yes.
so much about it I would love to just discuss with you sometime, because people don't quite a lot of older school people are coming around to virtual instruction,
Hmm.
online horse shows, and the fact that if they want to run a business, they may have to branch out to going on the onlines.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
love
We
to
have
do
to
that
adjust with the
sometime
times.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
Absolutely.
But I will just definitely reach out, and thank you so much for
Thank
being here.
you. Thank you for having
Looking
me.
forward to it.
Thank you. All right. I will.
I'll
I will
let you
pop off.
go. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.